Rain lashed against the streets of Atlanta as Charlotte Miles stared at her phone in disbelief. The message was short, simple, and devastating. Charlotte Miles has been confirmed dead. Her hands trembled as she reread the words. She was alive, standing in her apartment, yet the world was convinced she wasn't. Her heart raced as she thought about her family. Her sister Maya, her grandmother Evelyn, friends, how would they react? Even the police had claimed to identify her body. Someone had staged this. Someone had wanted the world to believe she was gone. Charlotte grabbed her coat and rushed to the bus station, her mind racing. She needed to see her family, but she had to be careful. Panic or sudden revelations could put them in danger, and alert whoever had orchestrated this. She called Maya once she got a signal, and after several shaky rings, her sister answered. "Charlotte?" Maya's voice quivered. "I'm here. I'm fine. It's me," Charlotte whispered, relief and urgency intertwining in her tone. She explained what had happened as quickly as she could, warning Maya to stay calm and discreet. The funeral was scheduled for the next morning at the neighborhood church. Charlotte knew she had to confront it directly, to prove she was alive to everyone without causing chaos. Arriving early, she slipped inside, letting her eyes scan the room. Black clothes, flowers, and a large portrait of herself greeted her. Tears streamed down faces she loved, and grief hung heavy in the air. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately, she raised her hands and spoke. "I'm alive." Gasps echoed throughout the church. Grandmother Evelyn collapsed into a pew, sobbing, while friends and relatives murmured in disbelief. Some fainted. Yet, amid the chaos, Charlotte noticed Aunt Regina standing perfectly still, her eyes cold and calculating. Something about her calmness didn't sit right. Charlotte moved closer to her family, holding Maya's hand tightly. Relief and joy mingled with suspicion in her chest. She had proved she was alive, but the uneasy feeling in her stomach told her that this was only the beginning. Someone had staged her death, and Aunt Regina's expression hinted that she knew more than she let on. By the time the service ended, Charlotte had taken a quiet mental inventory. She had survived the shock, protected her family from immediate panic, and observed the first hint of betrayal. The envelope she had found in her apartment, the curious calm in Aunt Regina's eyes, the premature confirmation of her death, each detail was a piece of a puzzle she intended to solve. As she left the church, rain still pouring, Charlotte clenched her fists and felt a surge of determination. She was alive, and no one would erase her life. Tonight, she would plan her next moves. Tomorrow, she would start uncovering the truth, and she wouldn't stop until she knew exactly who had tried to take her from the world. The morning after the chaotic funeral, Charlotte sat in her apartment, the rain tapping softly against the window. She still couldn't believe the world had thought she was dead, even after proving she was alive. A chilling thought lingered in her mind. Someone had orchestrated this. And Aunt Regina's calm, calculating expression at the church only confirmed her suspicion. She needed to understand who had benefited from the deception. While she had survived the shock of the funeral, the next challenge was figuring out the source of the scheme. She couldn't confront anyone blindly. She needed proof. Charlotte began with her apartment. She searched every drawer and shelf until she found a small envelope tucked under a stack of papers. Inside was a life insurance form in her name, already filled out and ready to be submitted. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but precise. Someone had tried to collect on her death before anyone else could stop them. Her heart pounded. The next step was careful observation. She arranged to meet her sister Maya under the pretense of discussing the funeral logistics. Together, they revisited the church, noting everyone who had been present, especially Aunt Regina. Charlotte watched her carefully, noticing her fidgeting with the envelope from the insurance company, glancing around as if she feared someone was watching. That observation gave Charlotte the leverage she needed. She discreetly snapped a few photos of Aunt Regina handling the envelope. This would serve as proof of her suspicious behavior. While Charlotte was strategizing, another problem emerged. A neighbor, unaware of the situation, had seen her walking in the rain and began gossiping. If the wrong person overheard, it could alert the person behind the scheme. Charlotte quickly instructed Maya to calm the neighbor and spread a controlled story that she had been visiting family and was fine. By mid-afternoon, Charlotte had taken several key actions. She had recovered the envelope, documented Aunt Regina's suspicious behavior, and ensured that no external party could interfere with her investigation. She felt a cautious sense of victory. She hadn't solved the entire mystery yet, but she had the first tangible evidence and had regained some control. Before leaving, she sent the photos and copies of the envelope to a secure email she shared only with Maya. They agreed to keep it confidential until they had enough evidence to confront Aunt Regina. That night, Charlotte reflected on the day. She had navigated the chaos of the funeral, uncovered the insurance claim, and documented suspicious behavior, all without alerting the perpetrator. She realized that the first battle had been won. She had turned fear into information and vulnerability into strategy. As she looked out at the rainy streets of Atlanta, Charlotte clenched her fists with determination. The world had tried to erase her, but she had survived, and now she was ready to uncover the truth. Whoever thought they could manipulate her life would soon discover just how wrong they were. Charlotte didn't get much sleep that night. Every sound in her apartment felt louder, every shadow longer. Now that she had evidence someone tried to profit from her death, she knew things were far from over. What she didn't expect was how quickly the next threat would arrive. At 12:47 a.m., a soft but deliberate knock echoed through her hallway. Charlotte froze. Nobody visited her at that hour. Nobody should even know she was home except Maya. Her heart thudded as she tiptoed to the peephole. What she saw made her breath hitch. A man in a black hoodie, standing perfectly still, his face hidden, his posture tense, like he wasn't there to talk. Her instincts said, danger. Rather than panic, Charlotte moved with quiet precision. She fetched her phone, turned off all lights, and recorded a short video of the man standing at her door. She zoomed in on the shoes, expensive, distinctive, with a gold stripe on the soles. Not a random stranger. After 2 minutes of silence, he knocked again, harder this time. Charlotte steadied her breathing and texted Maya. Someone is outside my door. Don't call, text only. Maya responded instantly. Do not open. I'm calling Darius. Darius, Maya's fiancé, lived close and worked security. He'd know what to do. Charlotte just needed to delay the intruder long enough for help to arrive. But the man seemed to grow impatient. He jiggled the doorknob, then pressed his hand against the door, as if testing its strength. Charlotte grabbed a heavy lamp, her makeshift weapon, while her mind raced. She needed to divert him. She opened her bedroom window quietly, stuck out a long broom handle, and tapped the metal gutter loudly. The sudden noise echoed through the alley, making it sound like someone was climbing upstairs. The man jerked his head up. Good. He stepped away from the door and peered into the darkness outside, trying to locate the source. Charlotte made 2 more taps, louder, then quickly shut the window and crouched behind her couch. A minute later, she heard footsteps fading down the stairs. Her body finally relaxed, just as her phone buzzed again. Darius is almost there. Stay put. When Darius arrived and checked the building, the man was gone, but he did find something, a folded note taped to the stair rail. Charlotte opened it with trembling fingers. Stay quiet. Stay gone. The handwriting didn't match the insurance forms. This was someone else. Someone who wasn't just after money, but wanted her silence. Charlotte took a photo of the note, then handed it to Darius for fingerprints. She wasn't going to let fear make her reckless. By dawn, she had succeeded in doing 2 things: protecting herself without confrontation and gathering new evidence. The mysterious visitor might have meant harm, but Charlotte now had a video, a description, and a threatening message, all tools she could use later. She had survived her second challenge. But one thing was clear. Whoever was behind this wanted her erased and wasn't stopping anytime soon. The morning sunlight felt too bright for the kind of night Charlotte had endured. Her mind replayed the scene over and over. The man at her door, the threatening notes, the deliberate way he'd stood there as if he knew she was watching. Whoever he wasn't acting alone. This was bigger than an insurance scam and bigger than Aunt Regina. Charlotte needed answers, real ones. Maya called as she was getting dressed. Darius couldn't get fingerprints off the note, she said. Too much moisture, but he thinks the guy was a professional. That worried Charlotte even more. Why would anyone hire someone just to scare me into staying quiet? What am I missing? There was only one person who might know. Her father's accountant, Mr. Lionel Carter. He had handled her family's finances for years and had been surprisingly nervous at her father's funeral months earlier. Charlotte hadn't thought about it then, but now the memory flickered like a warning light. She called him immediately. He answered on the third ring, his voice shaky. "Charlotte, you're the last person I expected to hear from. That seems to be a theme. I need to see you today." There was a long pause before he whispered, "Come to my office, and come alone." Charlotte almost backed out, but she knew she couldn't keep running in circles. Someone had declared her dead for a reason, and Lionel might know what her father left behind. When she arrived, Lionel locked the door behind her. His office looked the same: overstuffed bookshelves, dusty blinds, papers stacked like tired towers. But he looked drastically different, pale, sweating, and glancing at the windows as if someone was watching. "What's going on?" Charlotte asked. He motioned for her to sit and then slid a thick ledger across his desk. "Your father trusted me with everything. Before he died, he said someone was after the company accounts. He told me to protect the financial records." Charlotte's pulse quickened. Someone like Aunt Regina? Lionel swallowed hard. Regina is involved, yes, but she isn't the mastermind. Someone bigger is pulling the strings. Before Charlotte could ask who, Lionel tapped the ledger. "This book contains every transaction your father believed was part of the scheme. He said if anything ever happened to him or to you, I should give this to Maya." So they hadn't just expected Charlotte's death, they had anticipated it. That realization chilled her. She opened the ledger carefully. The numbers looked normal at first glance until she noticed a pattern: repeated withdrawals, identical amounts, taken on the same date every month, money siphoned silently, millions over time. "This is fraud," Charlotte whispered. Lionel nodded. "And if the wrong person knows you have this, they'll—" A crash sounded outside, the sharp crack of breaking glass. Lionel stiffened. "We don't have much time." Charlotte acted fast. She snapped photos of the critical pages, shoved the ledger into her bag, and helped Lionel move toward the back exit. But by the time they reached it, the door was already open. Someone had beaten them there. Charlotte made a quick decision. She grabbed Lionel's arm and pulled him into the stairwell. They moved quietly down to the basement, slipping through the old fire exit, just as footsteps echoed behind them. By the time they reached the street, they were breathless but safe. Charlotte had solved her challenge for the day. She had secured the ledger, protected Lionel, and escaped whoever had broken into the office. But as she clutched the book under her arm, she knew one thing for certain. The truth was far deeper and far deadlier than she ever imagined. Charlotte didn't sleep that night. The ledger sat on her table like a living thing, heavy with secrets her father had tried to expose. Every page she turned sharpened one terrifying truth. Whoever forged her death certificate wasn't just trying to steal money, they were cleaning house. Anyone who knew the truth was a target. Her phone buzzed just after sunrise. It was Maya. "I found something," Maya whispered. "Lionel called me. He said someone named Kincaid was the one your father warned him about." Charlotte froze. "Who is Kincaid?" "I don't know yet, but he's connected to a private security firm, Black Row Operations. And trust me, Char, you don't hire Black Row unless you need someone to disappear." Charlotte swallowed hard. So that was the man on her porch. Professional, cold, trained. A ghost with a name. Maya continued, "Be careful today. Kincaid files false reports for people. He's the reason anyone could get their death faked so easily." That made everything clearer. Someone had paid Kincaid to legally remove Charlotte so they could drain the company without her interference. But who? Charlotte didn't want to wait for answers. She decided to go to the one place she'd been avoiding, her father's old office. If her father had discovered something dangerous, his notes might still be there. She parked 2 blocks away and slipped inside the building using Maya's borrowed access card. Every step felt heavier than the last. Her father's office was exactly as he had left it, quiet, neat, smelling faintly of the cologne he used. For a moment, the ache of missing him almost knocked her off her feet. She set the ledger on his desk and looked around. She checked drawers, the bookshelf, behind frames. Nothing. Then she remembered something. Her father always said, "Where there's truth, there's a second copy." Charlotte pulled out the bottom drawer fully, feeling around the back panel until her fingers brushed something loose. She lifted the thin board to reveal a hidden compartment. Inside was a brown envelope, unmarked. Her heart pounded as she slid it open. Inside were photos. Photos of her father meeting with a man whose face she recognized immediately, Kincaid. In each image, her father looked tense, sometimes angry, sometimes afraid. And in the last picture, Kincaid stood alone next to a familiar black SUV, the same one Charlotte had seen outside Maya's house days earlier. A chill crept up her spine. They had been watching her long before the funeral. Suddenly, the sound of a door clicking open snapped her attention back. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, purposeful. Charlotte grabbed the envelope, shoved it into her bag, and turned off the lights. She slipped into the back storage room just as someone entered the office. She recognized the voice instantly. Aunt Regina. "Find the ledger," Regina hissed. "Kincaid said she'll come here eventually. I want everything she touches gone." Charlotte covered her mouth to keep from gasping. Her aunt's voice held no grief, no guilt, just cold precision. They were working together. When Regina finally left, Charlotte waited 2 minutes, then slipped out the back door into the alley. Her challenge for the day had been survival and discovery. She had achieved both. But as she got into her car and locked the doors, one thought burned hotter than fear. If Regina and Kincaid wanted her dead, they had underestimated her. Charlotte kept her eyes on the rearview mirror the entire drive home. The photos in her bag felt heavier than the ledger itself. Every streetlight, every passing car made her shoulders tense. Now she knew 2 things for certain. Aunt Regina wasn't just involved, she was orchestrating something massive. And Kincaid wasn't just a hired shadow, he was everywhere. She parked in a crowded grocery store lot, hoping to lose any tail that might have followed her from her father's office. She stepped out, pretending to be a normal shopper, but her senses were sharp. She knew danger had a smell, a silence, a rhythm, and something in that lot didn't feel right. A man stood near the far exit, leaning on a black sedan. He wasn't looking at her, but he wasn't looking at anything else either. His posture was too still, too observant, too deliberate. Charlotte's stomach tightened. Was it Kincaid? The man wore a cap pulled low, but his build matched the figure on her porch days earlier. Solid, trained, unreadable. Charlotte moved slowly toward the entrance doors, pretending to check her phone. She typed a quick message to Maya. Someone might be watching me. Grocery store lot, black sedan. Could be him. She hit send. The man straightened. Their eyes met. Charlotte instantly turned into the store, weaving into the aisles. Her heart thudded in her ears. She didn't know if he was following, but she didn't need to confirm it. She needed a plan. That was her challenge for the day. Get away clean. No tail, no trace, no capture. She moved through the frozen food section, then cut sharply into the home supplies aisle. She crouched behind a stack of storage bins and peered down the row. There he was, not walking fast, not looking around, just moving with purpose, toward her aisle. She took a slow breath. She couldn't run out the front, the cameras were too obvious. She couldn't leave out the back, it was a dead end. Then she saw her escape, a pallet door where employees brought in shipments. It wasn't meant for customers, but it led to the loading dock and a second exit. She quietly slipped behind a group of shoppers, using their carts as cover, then angled toward the back. The man picked up his pace. Charlotte reached the stockroom door marked Employees Only. She tried the handle. Unlocked. She slipped inside. The smell of cardboard and detergent hit her instantly. Workers stacked boxes on metal shelves. Charlotte approached one quickly. "Excuse me," she whispered urgently. "Someone's following me. Can I get out the back?" The worker's eyes widened, but he nodded. He led her down a narrow hallway to the loading dock. "Door leads to the side alley," he said. "Careful, no cameras." Perfect. Maya drove fast, her eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror. Charlotte sat pressed against the window, replaying the scene in the grocery store parking lot. Whoever that man was, he hadn't approached her by accident. He had known exactly where to look, exactly how to move. That kind of precision wasn't random. When they reached Maya's apartment, Darius was already waiting. He stood at the door with his laptop open, frowning at whatever he had pulled up. That sedan wasn't Kincaid's, Darius said the moment they entered, but the plates were registered to a shell company connected to Regina. She's using different teams. Charlotte's stomach twisted. Why does she need more than one? Darius shrugged. Insurance? Or maybe Kincaid doesn't know everything she's doing. That thought shook Charlotte. If Regina was hiding things even from a man like Kincaid, then the operation was far larger than they imagined. Charlotte set her bag down and pulled out the envelope of photos. "My father was meeting with Kincaid before he died. I found these in a hidden compartment in his office." Maya leaned closer, her eyebrow raised. "Your dad wasn't a man who scared easily. For him to meet Kincaid alone means he was desperate." Charlotte nodded, her voice tight. "There's more. Regina was in the office today with him. They're actively looking for the ledger." Darius cursed under his breath. "Then we don't have time. We need to find out what your father knew." Charlotte stared at the ledger. It was thick, confusing, too detailed to decode in a single night. But her father was smart and he loved puzzles. He wouldn't hide information, he would layer it. Then it hit her. "My dad recorded everything," Charlotte said suddenly. "Not on his phone, on a tiny voice recorder he kept in his office. If he met with Kincaid, he recorded it." Maya's eyes widened. "Do you know where it is?" "Yes, if no one has found it yet." That became the challenge of the day. Find the recorder before Regina or her men destroy the evidence. They returned to the office building, entering through the back to avoid cameras. Charlotte led them straight to her father's private storage room. She remembered the exact drawer he always used, a shallow wooden one beneath the old supply cabinet. She knelt, slid it open, and felt underneath. Nothing. Her heart dropped. Maya tried another drawer. Darius checked the shelf. Charlotte pulled out boxes, pushing aside old staplers and folders. "This can't be gone," Charlotte whispered. "He always kept it here." Then, as she stood to move another box, something clicked beneath her shoe. A loose floor tile. Charlotte dropped to her knees, pried the tile up and her breath caught. The recorder was there, untouched. She grabbed it and immediately played the first file. Her father's voice filled the room, tired, angry, afraid. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. Regina is lying. Kincaid is more involved than he pretends. And if they come for Charlotte..." The recording cut off abruptly. Charlotte's heart stopped. Maya whispered, "He tried to warn you." But Charlotte wasn't shaken. She was furious. She had solved her challenge. She found the evidence. And now she finally knew Regina and Kincaid weren't covering up a scheme. They were covering up a murder. For a long moment, no one in the room breathed. Charlotte held the recorder in her trembling hand, staring at it as though the small device might come alive and give her the rest of the sentence her father never got to finish. His voice, once strong, certain, had cracked under fear. And now she understood why. Regina and Kincaid hadn't just threatened him, they had silenced him. Charlotte pressed the next file. Static filled the room, followed by muffled footsteps. A chair scraped, papers rustled. Then a low voice, Kincaid's voice, rose through the distortion. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. Her father responded, steady but strained. "I won't let you touch her. Charlotte stays out of this." The static swallowed his last words, and the recording ended abruptly. Charlotte tightened her grip on the recorder. Her father had tried to protect her. That's why he hid the ledger, why he warned Lionel, why he met Kincaid on his own. He knew they were coming for him long before they came for her. But hearing it wasn't enough. She needed a name. She needed proof. She pressed file 3. More static, but this time, buried beneath it was something distinct. Faint voices, too distorted to understand. Darius quickly grabbed the recorder. "Let me try to clean this up." He plugged it into his laptop and began filtering the audio. The longer he worked, the more nervous Charlotte became. She paced the room, fighting the rising panic. "What if we can't hear it?" she whispered. Maya placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we look somewhere else. But your dad left this for a reason, Char. He wanted you to hear it." After several tense minutes, Darius sat up straighter. "I think I got it." He hit play. At first, the audio was still rough, muffled breaths, background noise. Then, suddenly, a new voice emerged, loud and clear. A woman's voice. "Regina. Kincaid works for him, not me. Remember that." Charlotte stopped pacing. Him? Who was him? Regina continued, her voice calm and cold. "He wants the company erased. If Thomas doesn't cooperate, then we move forward with the plan. Charlotte isn't a concern. She's replaceable." Charlotte's chest tightened. The cruelty in Regina's tone burned like ice. Darius paused the audio. "There's another voice," he said. "A third person, not your dad, not Kincaid, not Regina." He adjusted the filters again. Another layer of static peeled away. A deep male voice emerged, smooth, confident, dangerous. "Handle Thomas," the unknown man said calmly. "I'll handle Charlotte when the time comes." Charlotte froze. She had never heard that voice in her life, yet something about it made her skin crawl. Maya whispered, "Char, this is bigger than family drama. Someone powerful is behind all this." Charlotte nodded slowly. She had found her challenge of the day. She found the hidden voice, the unseen mastermind, the true threat. But she didn't have his name. Not yet. Darius leaned back. "I can run a voice matching software. It'll take hours, but if this guy is anyone with public recordings, we'll know." "Do it," Charlotte said firmly. Her father died fighting this man. She would live finishing the war he started. The room felt colder as Darius set his software to work. The unknown man's voice echoed in Charlotte's mind like a warning she couldn't silence. Whoever he was, he had power, real power. The kind that made Regina follow orders, the kind that made Kincaid lethal, the kind that could erase a person with a single forged document. Charlotte hovered behind Darius as the waveform flickered on the screen. Maya paced with folded arms, glancing at the door every few seconds as though expecting danger to walk through it. "Anything yet?" Charlotte asked. "Almost," Darius murmured. Matching. Hold up." The screen flashed green. A name appeared. Charlotte's heart lurched. Winston Hale. Maya stepped closer. "Wait, your dad's old business partner?" Charlotte nodded, a cold rush filling her. "Yes, he and my father built the early stages of the company together, but my dad cut ties with him years ago." Winston Hale. Rich, ruthless, connected to half the city's elite. Charlotte's father once called him ambitious, but Charlotte had learned that was her father's polite way of saying dangerous. "What's his connection to Regina?" Maya asked. "Why work together?" "Regina needed money," Charlotte whispered, "and Hale needed someone he could buy, someone willing to do anything." Darius turned from the screen. "Hale owns Black Row Operations." Charlotte's breath caught. That meant Kincaid worked for Hale. The fake death certificate came from Hale. Her father's murder? Hale. The truth hit her like a wave she couldn't outrun. Suddenly, Maya's phone buzzed. She checked the screen. Then her expression collapsed into horror. "Charlotte, look." Charlotte took the phone. A breaking news alert lit the display. Charlotte Miles, officially declared dead in car fire outside city limits, body identified by authorities. "No," Charlotte whispered. "They're doubling down." Darius grabbed the phone. "This must have been filed hours ago. They staged a whole new death. They're making it impossible for you to come back publicly." Maya's voice shook. "Char, this isn't a scare tactic. This is permanent erasure. They want you to vanish for real." Charlotte paced, mind racing. "Hale is pushing me into a corner. He wants me to disappear quietly. And if I don't, he'll send Kincaid." Maya finished softly. Charlotte lifted her chin, determination sharpening her fear into something stronger. "I need evidence, not just a theory, something that destroys Regina and Hale completely." Darius pointed toward the recorder. "If we get a clean copy of Hale ordering your dad's death, it's over for them." "But the recording is damaged," Maya reminded him. "We need the original file." Charlotte stopped pacing. A memory flashed. "My father kept backups," she said slowly. "He stored everything in the company's server room, hidden, protected. If Hale didn't know where to look, it's still there." Darius frowned. "That building has guards, cameras, controlled access." "Exactly," Charlotte replied. "And if Hale thinks I'm dead, he won't be watching for me." Maya stared at her. "You're planning to walk into the company like nothing happened?" Charlotte grabbed her coat. "Not like nothing happened, like a woman who refuses to stay buried." Maya exhaled sharply. "You're unbelievable." Charlotte paused at the door. "I'm just getting started." Charlotte pulled her hoodie low and kept her head down as she approached the company building. Night had draped the city in a quiet stillness, the kind that made every sound echo, every shadow stretch, perfect for slipping through unnoticed. Maya remained in the car down the block, keeping her phone ready. Darius watched the building's security feed from his laptop. Charlotte's earpiece buzzed softly. "Front guard is nodding off," Darius whispered. "Camera rotation in 15 seconds. Move now." Charlotte crossed the street like a ghost. When the security camera tilted away, she slid her access card, still active because Hale believed she no longer existed. Inside, the familiar scent of polished floors and faint coffee hit her. This place had once felt like home. Now it felt like a graveyard built for her. She hurried to the server room on the lower floor, heart pounding with each step. Darius guided her through the maze of corridors until she reached the heavy door. "Badge works here too," he muttered. Hale didn't think this through. Charlotte tapped her card, and the lock clicked open. Cold air washed over her. The room hummed with server stacks, tall metal towers blinking silently. She moved straight to the storage cabinet her father always used. The key was gone, but Charlotte remembered her father's trick. He kept a screwdriver taped behind the cabinet. She reached behind it, fingers brushing metal. There. Moments later, she unscrewed the panel and pulled out the small encrypted backup drive, still wrapped in her father's handwriting. For Charlotte and the truth. Emotion surged through her, but before she could breathe, Darius's voice cut into her ear sharply. "Charlotte, someone just entered the building, and it's not a guard." Footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Charlotte slipped behind the server racks, pressing herself into the shadows. The door opened. Kincaid stepped inside. He moved slowly, scanning the room with the calm certainty of a hunter. His hand rested near the holster of the gun beneath his jacket. Charlotte held her breath. Kincaid walked closer. His eyes flicked over the servers, the cables, the floor, searching, listening, feeling for a presence. Then, unexpectedly, he spoke. "You know," he murmured into the silence, "Hale said you wouldn't make it this far." Charlotte's pulse thrashed through her ears. Kincaid turned, gaze sweeping the room. "But I knew he underestimated you. Your father said the same thing." Charlotte stepped out from behind the server, grip tight on the drive. Kincaid didn't draw his weapon. He just looked at her, eyes unreadable. "Why? Why kill my father? Why fake my death?" Kincaid's jaw tightened. "Orders. Hale wanted full control. Your father refused to hand it over." Charlotte's anger rose. And what about me? Was erasing me in order too? Kincaid hesitated, just long enough to reveal everything. "Yes." Charlotte moved before he could react. She grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall and swung it hard into his arm, knocking the gun away. Kincaid lunged, but Charlotte ducked and struck again, sending him crashing into the server rack. The metal clang shook the room. Charlotte darted for the door. "Darius, unlock the emergency exit now." She sprinted down the hallway, clutching the drive like a lifeline. Behind her, Kincaid's footsteps thundered back to life. The exit door beeped open. Charlotte burst through into the cold night and jumped into Maya's car. "Go!" she screamed. Maya hit the gas. The car sped away, leaving Kincaid glowering in the doorway. Charlotte collapsed into her seat, breath shaking, the drive safe in her hands. With the backup recordings, Hale's orders, and Regina's voice, the truth could finally see daylight. Her father's death would be exposed, Hale's empire would fall, and her name would rise from the ashes they tried to bury her under. Maya looked over, a proud smile breaking through the fear. "You walked into your own funeral and walked out with the truth." Charlotte stared at the city lights ahead, fire in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "I walked out alive." Thanks for watching. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.